Okay, here we are on the last review, review 7, which is all about solving triangles using right triangle trigonometry. So you know if it's right triangle trig, you need to start with a right triangle. And I always like to say that start with the angle. So I put an angle here, theta. I know if this were a triangular lake, then I'd throw a rock to the opposite side. That's the hypotenuse because opposite the 90, and of course that's the adjacent side. So I know then that sine of any angle is the opposite of the hypotenuse, cosine of any angle is the adjacent of the hypotenuse, and tangent of any angle is the opposite of the adjacent. Okay, got that. Now, let's use that information to answer question 1. Question 1 says find the trigonometric ratio. So just a fraction. Ratio means fraction. I'm not going to solve any of these. I'm just going to set the fraction, okay? Sine then is the opposite over the hypotenuse. The 4 is the opposite, the 5 is the hypotenuse, so the answer is just 4/5. Cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, 3/5. Tangent is the opposite over the adjacent, which is 4/3. All I want is just the fractions. Don't solve it. Okay, number 2, let's actually use triangle trig now to get these answers. All right, on number 2, let's find the easy stuff. So I said, okay, well, the easy thing to find is this angle here. I know these two angles, C and T, must add up to 90. They're complementary. So if I go take 90 from 72, I get 18. Okay, now, to solve it, what I have to do is pick either one of these angles. How about 18? So I just picked angle T, which is 18. That would make that my opposite side, hypotenuse my adjacent side. Okay, so let's find the hypotenuse. So to find the hypotenuse, I'll get the opposite next. To get the hypotenuse, my adjacent and my hypotenuse is cosine. So I set up cosine of theta, which is 18, that's the angle, equals the adjacent side, which is 12, over the hypotenuse, which is a. Now, whenever I have the variables on the bottom, I multiply by a, bring it up, and I divide by cosine of 18. And then I just type that into my calculator just exactly like that. I just went, okay. Make sure you're in degree mode, not radian mode. So then I just went 12 divided by the cosine of 18, and sure enough I get an answer about 12.6. Okay, now, to find t, I could either use sine, tangent, but the kids wanted to use Pythagoras theorem, so I went a squared t squared plus 12 squared equals c squared, which is 12.6. I subtracted, square rooted, and I got about a 3.84. Might have been easier cosine, might have been easier using the tangent, but it's okay. We did Pythagoras theorem. Okay, turn the page. All right, so I got a ladder, I got it right, and it leans against a house 15 feet. The ladder's 20 feet long. I want the angle between the house and the ladder, that's that angle. From the angle, that's my adjacent side. That's my hypotenuse. So I know that if I use adjacent hypotenuse, it has to be cosine. So cosine of theta is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse, which is 15 over 20. Anytime I need an angle, I must use the inverse button, the negative one button. I have to. So I'm going to cosine inverse of 15 over 20, and I got about 41.1. So I just typed my calculator, cosine inverse in blue, need the inverse button, 15 divided by 20, and I get about a 41.4. Okay, all right. Okay, number 4. All right. To find the area of this triangle. Well, area of any triangle is 1/2 base times height. So what I did is I drew the triangle and I made a line straight down it so I could work on a right triangle. Okay, so I knew that this is 50 degrees. If I cut the triangle in half, makes that angle 25. Okay, so then I've got to find the height and the base. So we found the height first. That's from the angle, my adjacent side, my hypotenuse. So I set up cosine. I went cosine of 25 is equal to my adjacent over my hypotenuse, or h over 12. To solve it, I multiply by 12. I use my calculator. I went just 12 times the cosine of 25, and I get an answer of about 10.87 or 10.9. That's the height of the triangle. Okay, then I needed the base, so that would be my opposite. So I used the sine, opposite over hypotenuse, sine of 25 equals my b over 12 opposite over hypotenuse. I multiply by 12. I use my calculator. I got 5.1. Now I got to be careful because 5.1 is really there. Not for the whole triangle. 5.1 is right there. So on the triangle 5.1, 5.1, the base of the triangle is really going to be times 2, 10.2. Okay, so I'm going to put that there. So finally, to find the area of this triangle, 1/2 base, which we found to be 10.2, times the height, which is 10.9. I use my calculator, and I got about 55.6. Okay, that's all I have. If you have any questions, come see me.